technology is a big one in terms of like how you run a business. The trades were like the last of sort of the industries to get a really strong software developed for them. But ServiceTitan is just changing the industry in that regard.
I love it. Welcome back to the CashFlow podcast, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. I'm your host, Jason Yoss. And before we get to my guest today, I want to say a special thanks to our vendor sponsors. Daniels Plumbing, taking care of all of Orange County, San Diego County, and Riverside County here in California. And as well, Rainforest Plumbing and Air. And more importantly, not just do they service the greater Phoenix Metro, but today I have the Chief Strategy Officer, Spencer Tippetts, in studio. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
So it's not normal that I get to talk about our vendor sponsors and then have one of them in studio, but I'm super excited to have you. There's a lot of synergy in our companies, but give us a little background. So did you grow up with the wrench in your hand, or how'd you get involved with Rainforest?
Yeah, so Rainforest is a family business. My dad started it in 1999. He was actually a controller for a plumbing construction company in Phoenix, and that plus passing the test was enough to get a contractor's license and go out on his own. And so anyway, his journey has been just the quintessential American entrepreneur story. So we'll talk about that at some point. But that's my hero and my mentor along the my business career. But so anyway, he started the business. I must have been 6 years old when it started.
Nice.
So my first job was filling the soda machine in the shop, and then eventually got promoted to sweeping the warehouse, and then spent some time as a plumber's apprentice.
Nice.
So dug plenty of trenches and that sort of thing. But like I told you, you wouldn't want me working on your plumbing and air conditioning. But I know my way around it, and yeah.
You know enough to be dangerous.
Yeah.
And I grew up on a truck. My dad owned a moving company, and I also got promoted to sweeping out the truck and then eventually folding the pads. But my dad said something that you and I both connected on. He was like, yeah, you're going to go to college. Like, you're not going to make a living on this truck. And so talk to me about that journey, not going into the business right away, and then how you decided to come back.
Yeah. So there's always the irony that someone who's successful in a small business, the first thing they want to do is send their kid to college, which is sort of the opposite of how they got there. So I went to college, and really grateful for that, because really college was like an incubator of just my brain. That's where I learned how to just solve problems, and just kind of grew up a little bit. Went out and had a short corporate career at the largest retailer on the planet. I worked in their corporate office and did some things, and it's a gigantic company. This is Walmart, by the way, that I'm talking about. And I remember being told, you can't, don't change anything until you've been here for a year or two.
Got it.
And I just thought that was insane, that they would really hold me back and suggest not to change anything. So when a opportunity opened up at the family business, the stars kind of aligned, and I chose to move back.
I love it. I love it. And you talked a little bit about the background. What about mentorship? I mean, your dad's obviously a hero. Who else are you looking to, or what else are you listening to that helped shape the way you're performing in your business today?
Yeah, well, I think even people like you and my dad would agree. There's self-made success stories. That there really isn't such a thing. There's just so many people that are there helping build it.
Absolutely.
Tony Robbins was one of the first things that in the late 90s, my dad pooled together $300 to buy the Unleash the Power Within set.
Right.
And he would chant an affirmation on his way to work every day. And anyway, so we grew up with that sort of influence. And then as I grew up and things there was a little bit of extra room in the budget, we were lucky enough to attend a few of these events with Tony, and so that's been Tony Robbins has been sort of foundational to sort of our family business success.
Surprising how many people will spend $300 on a weekend night out or whatever, but they won't put it towards a training course. They won't put it towards business development. It boggles my mind, because this is ultimately the gateway to helping get not just generational wealth, but a better way of running your own business.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably one of the biggest lessons I've learned from my dad, is watching him make financial decisions. When it comes to buying a new car, he'll fuss over it and he'll research and all these things, and he's not even talking, these are like normal cars he's trying to buy.
Right.
But when there's a Tony Robbins event, it's just, he doesn't even think about it.
Yeah.
He can see the value in personal development and that sort of thing. So agreed.
No, I love it. So, and then we talked a lot about this, and because I'm a huge fan, talk to me about how EOS has been the incubator for success for Rainforest as of right now.
Yeah. So EOS is really kind of like the logical step after you've been sort of brainwashed by Tony Robbins.
Right.
It's sort of like Tony Robbins applied. And so yeah, we came across this book called Traction, just like most people do. And reading the book, it felt like it was talking about us, that we were kind of getting in our own way. We met with a professional EOS implementer. His name's Josh West, and he has been just fundamental in implementing EOS in the company. That we have 150 employees, so a lot of people to sort of get on board with this. And it's just, it couldn't have been possible. So that's why when you said you were self-implemented, I was surprised, because I know how hard it was and we had help.
And again, different size company being 35, but we spoke before, there are levels to your company, and you have to get all those levels synced up from executive level down to your junior employee. And if you can't do that, you don't have that synergy to have everything moving in the right direction. How, based on taking a look under the hood and developing your vision and your mission statement, how did you come to a service philosophy for your clients? Who is your core client ultimately, and what is the philosophy on that relationship with them?
Yeah, so the core client is property managers. So we do plumbing and air conditioning, service plumbing and air conditioning for property managers.
Right.
Our sort of philosophy has been, which tying back into the EOS thing, it was kind of hard to communicate what that was. Sure. There was a secret recipe there, and we didn't necessarily take the time to write it down. So it's been kind of an interesting thing, but it all starts with being upfront with the customer.
Yeah.
So we never do any work until everything's been agreed upon.
Yep.
And then we call out the upfront guarantee, so that if something changes or whatever along the way, it's too late. We've already agreed at what's going to happen here.
Right.
And so that's been a way we've differentiated ourselves in the past. Today we would call that owning the outcome.
I love it.
So everybody in the organization takes responsibility for their piece of the value chain. That's one of our EOS core values. The second is solving what's next.
Yeah.
So always, if there is a problem, we bring that up early and say, okay, but this is what could happen after that.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is seeking the greater good. So especially in property management, it's not about making as much money as we can at that one service call. It's about the long-term relationship. And so that sometimes is, making a decision that sort of helps keep the customer profitable.
Right.
But then we're together working, for years to come.
100%. It's funny how similar, and I think a lot of this has to do with EOS, is that the mindsets are, they are congruent. Like, for example, commitment to communication. That's one of our core values. For you, as you said, being upfront with your communication, that's huge, and it leads to solving problems. And that's one of our main core values too. So companies that are able to get under the hood, define what a mission is, who their client is, how they're going to continue to maintain that partnership, I noticed there's a lot of the same fundamental themes underneath that, and that's very important for alignment. You want to do business, you want to work with people that you're aligned with. So, I I love I love hearing it. Like I said, once we started talking on the phone, and again, we've done a lot of work together, and we're very lucky to have you guys as a partner in the Phoenix Valley. But I want to talk about, as we transition into maybe case studies. You know, people probably all the time have a kind of idea in their mind of what a plumber, what a HVAC specialist, what you guys do on a regular basis. And I want to go through some of the basics. So let's start with maybe what's the most common issue that you guys see and best ways to prevent them for your clients?
Yeah. So between the two trades, there can be, we'll see, there's a lot of things that can go wrong in a plumbing system and an air conditioning system.
Absolutely.
So plumbing, it is, it's going to be a lot of drain related stuff. That's the crappy part of what we do. It's brown gold is
that's
what we call that.
Pun intended.
Yeah. So so that's what we'll see there, and then air conditioning. It would be. Well, I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but what I'm getting at is it's really actually just kind of like a lack of attention to your plumbing and air conditioning system.
Right.
So that takes the form of, sort of overlooking maintenance, changing filters,
Preventative maintenance, basically.
Yeah. Hydrojetting if you're in like sort of multi-story buildings.
How are you surprised by the amount of, clientele who just aren't putting a focus on preventative maintenance?
Well, understandably, property management is a pretty it's pretty aggressive. The sort of economic pressures that are being
Absolutely.
felt. So is it surprising? Like economically speaking, no.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we value short-term performance.
Sure. Yeah.
But the ones who are really looking at long-term performance are spending money on just preventative actions.
Especially and you and I talked about, especially those big systems, like I guess, and we'll get into this in a second, but like on the HVAC, like if you are not paying attention to your HVAC system on a regular basis, like it's going to go out. You got to pay attention. And then on the plumbing side, talk to me about, what you're finding, especially in the Valley, when somebody is purchasing a property, especially these older properties. What's the general consensus on the life or the condition of these sewers that you're seeing?
Yeah. So sort of the baseline rule here is anything older than like the 70s, it's just you have to be doing a sewer camera inspection.
Got it.
That could wreck your, well, if you're just trying to sell the property, then whatever. But if you're trying to make a profit off of that as an investment,
Yep.
that will wreck your P&L in the short and long term. I mean, the expense can be huge there.
It's funny because people buy it because they want to live there, but they also might buy it as a rental or a flip. But every one of those, if they ignore an inspection and something goes bad, it's totally preventative. How much is a sewer inspection?
That's $300.
So for $300, Spencer, somebody, while they're purchasing a property, can have a professional like from your firm go in, inspect a sewer, and tell you, here's my recommendation based on what we're seeing on a camera.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty simple, and like we were talking about, it is not every call we do is a sewer inspection,
right?
And we go to a lot of places, and so it's just that sort of indicates to me that not a lot of people are taking that step. So the best way to protect your client, your business, whatever it is really just to sort of get a feel for the things you can't see.
Yeah.
At least that you can't see visually. We can see that stuff for you.
It's peace of mind for $300. And then talk to me about, like, let's say you do, again, especially for my rental property owners or even my flippers, but let's say you do see a sewer with issues. Like, what are you recommending? Like, what's normally the fix? I got to dig up everything, or what does it look like nowadays?
Yeah. So something that is really common to see in rental housing is just grease buildup. At our own homes, we are maybe a little more cautious about what we're putting down the drain in a rental is just sort of historically not that way. So probably the most common thing would just be hydrojetting.
Right.
And so for those that aren't familiar with that, it's just a high pressure water shot through basically a specialized nozzle can kind of clean the inside of the pipe. And when you break that buildup out of the way, it just allows for sewage to move through.
Yeah.
And
pretty self-explanatory, right?
yeah, but if that plugs up just a little bit, the damages they can become exponential. So hydrojetting is probably the most frequent sort of preventative thing. And when you get the blockage like that, because of sort of the lack of maintenance, digging down and getting it that way is sort of which I like I told you on the phone is I'm comfortable saying this because I know people won't listen to it. And I'm glad about that because,
you make money.
I got to make a living too. So, but the dig is sort of that's the worst case scenario, best case for us, but that's the secret.
And just out of curiosity, in today's age, like, is it all having to be digged? They don't have any new high technology to fix a plumbing line, or it's just, that's what it is. Hey, if it's old and broke, like, that's what we got to do.
Yeah, that's a great question. So there have been there's been a lot of advances in trenchless sewer repairs. There's different ways.
Trenchless sewer repair. That's what it's called. I love it.
Yeah. So a situation we see all the time is the homeowner or just property owner that did a nice remodel on this 1960, this house built in the 1960s. They put some engineered hardwood floor down, and they never checked the sewer.
Right.
So there's a couple of things that can be done without tearing up the flooring, which is like always the goal.
Right. Nobody wants to tear up their brand new floor, right?
Exactly. So we can coat, and that's where it's essentially like painting the inside with epoxy. And then the other thing is we can line, which is like blowing up a balloon inside the pipe.
Really?
And there's some scenarios where in Arizona, at least, there's a lot of cast iron that was used. That cast iron can sort of corrode away, and there can be large cracks. We can get some of those cracks with lining and that sort of thing, but there's scenarios where the pipe is crushed or whatever, and that's where we have to dig.
Right.
But our sort of our like, what is it called? Our standard process is to attempt pipe coating or lining first before we dig. That cuts the cost of the repair in half.
Huge.
So
huge. I love that. And it's great to see the technology coming. Let's do a little bit of shift. HVAC. The Phoenix Valley, I mean, it's, 110 to 115, and the hottest, I mean, you got 4 months of just blazing heat.
Mm-hmm.
How many calls on average are you getting per week?
Yeah, in the summertime, it's probably around 300 air conditioning calls a week.
Wow.
And so I know I might have misquoted earlier combining all the calls we do, but in the summer, we're looking at 250, 300 calls a week.
And when we want to set expectations for, especially our residents, what are we telling them to set them up for success? How long between the time we get the call and the time we do a repair for most of the scenarios?
Yeah, I think if you're in Phoenix and your landlord can get somebody out within 2 days, they're the best ever.
Yeah.
Our goal is to be within 24 to 48 hours. Right. There are, this summer's been kind of weird. There's some 115 weeks, and then it goes down to 105, and we can sort of catch up. Other times it's 115 for 2 months straight, and but like I said, if your landlord is doing 48 hours, that's where they should aspire to be at.
A huge way to prevent all the craziness is to be doing your tune-ups, your air filters. We talk about that all the time. But when it comes to being out on site and your technician has to recommend, let's say, HVAC replacements, time to replace the system, how often are you seeing people actually do it versus like, hey, we're just going to Band-Aid it?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would say it's maybe 50-50. Like I mentioned, there's the short-term performance of the asset that is trying to be considered. But yeah, there's, especially in Arizona, anything over 10 years old is going to be it's going to become really costly to repair. Add in the changes in refrigerant, that is making, older parts that are compatible with older refrigerants are becoming more and more scarce and just expensive to replace. So,
and that brings me to that question on that. When we have a tenant calling a lot, what are we telling them to do in order to set them up for success for as fast as possible a repair? My number one is please don't call me 100 times. We got the repair request. We will acknowledge it. We will tell you who we're sending. What are you trying to tell residents and property managers that sets you guys up for success?
Well, first, I guess what comes to mind is the property manager. It's maybe up to the property manager to work with a company who works with tenants.
Right.
So our technicians and our office staff are trained to, share what we need to share with a tenant and not share what we don't need to share.
That's huge. As a property manager, that's huge. There's nothing worse than a technician just saying random stuff to a tenant, and then the tenant only picks and chooses the things they want to pull out of that, and then they blow everybody up. So I agree with that.
Right. Yeah. So, on the tenant side, it's really just answer the phone. It's not like, our office is pretty good at when your properties call in, our office is just expected to reach out to this tenant and figure out a time.
Right.
It's sort of the last call you make is to us, and then we handle the rest. So yeah, I would say just, be open to work with us, but
be available.
The property manager is really the one that needs to just, make sure you're not calling like Chuck in his truck, because they don't have the capacity to do that. Otherwise, you, the property manager, are being, you're doing all that phone tag.
It's 100% why we partner together, not just the alignment, the companies, but that commitment to look, I know where I hand off and I know where you're going to pick up and how we're going to close the door on it. And our tenants are happy about that. And that's a huge takeaway from us. I got a question, and we talked about this a little before. Okay, the reality behind cooling. So let's say it's 110 to 115. People all the time say, my home isn't 65 degrees. The system isn't working. It's your fault. You got to fix it. What's the reality? How, first of all, can we get it to 65 when it's 110? And second of all, how cool do we have to make it to be in compliance with the laws in Phoenix?
Yeah, that is a great question. So an air conditioner, contrary to popular belief, does not put out more cold air the lower you set the temperature.
Yeah.
It just comes out, in a perfectly working system, comes out 20 degrees colder than where it sucked it in.
Right.
And it can only do that for so long before, stuff starts breaking. But so 65 in Arizona, we are sort of pushing up against the limits of physics on
right.
how much air or heat can be, energy can be removed from air. And so I would say, if your system's around 74, 75 in the peak of the day, everything's just fine.
It's 40 degrees less than a 115 degree day.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It's honestly one of those things where it's we take it totally for granted, but what a world we live in that such a thing is possible. But don't get me wrong. I walk into somebody's house and it's 76 degrees. I'm like, get me out of here. This is, and then I'm calling somebody. But no, like I said, laws of physics are sort of up against us in Arizona, but as far as compliance goes in Arizona, it's 82 degrees is sort of as landlords, it's our job to keep it there or below.
Got it.
So yeah.
And when we talk a lot about too, that it's not always a system. There's everything from insulation to, proper, making sure that you're setting up your ventilation system correctly. There's more than just, the system. And then as you and I just talked about, are you doing the preventative maintenance? Is your filter changed? Have you been changing it regularly? Those little things go a long way. Let me just kind of ask you a big thing that I think always comes up. What are the biggest changes that you're looking at and challenges from today versus, let's say, when your dad first opened the company? What's different today, and how is that a major challenge to being able to service your clients?
Yeah, that's a good question. The sort of the advent of software for the trades, that has been actually weirdly a recent development. It was the company that we use was founded just a handful of years ago, and we started using them shortly after they started. That's Service Titan. Just that would be another kind of interesting way if you're really trying to partner with somebody. Make sure you're partnering with a Service Titan user.
Got it.
That actually has been transformational for our business. We've tripled in size since we joined with Service Titan in 2019. So pretty steep scaling there.
That's huge.
So yeah, technology is a big one.
Wait, real quick, Spencer, when you say technology, is it because technology for an HVAC system has changed or how a technician, I mean, they still got to diagnose, right? Like, what about technology has made the landscape different for plumbing and HVAC?
Yeah, so I'll try to tie this all back in, but and I was knee high to a grasshopper in these days, but the way that you used to communicate with your technicians was over Nextel push-to-talk phones.
Oh, that's right. I remember those days, absolutely.
And I remember my dad had one, and we thought he was the coolest guy ever for that little beep it would make.
That's right.
But if the technician's working on a job and you called them, you just couldn't get a hold of them. Now we have texting and cell phones and all those things, but we don't even have to make a phone call. The technician has all the information about the property, all the past repairs we've made about that particular unit.
Yep.
And all that stuff makes it so that the technician, they don't need so much sort of just administrative support. They can.
It's all the touch of a button, right, all in their palm, right?
Right.
Do they have phones or iPads, or what are they
using?
Yep,
phones and tablets.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and so we can, that part of that upfront agreement, we can get signatures and all that stuff sort of to memorialize that upfront agreement. But yeah, technology is a big one in terms of like how you run a business. The trades were like the last of sort of the industries to get a really strong software developed for them. But Service Titan's just changing the industry in that regard.
I love it. I want to wrap up here. One final question in our last 2 minutes, okay? Lasting piece of advice, especially because you've actually seen the business from being young to being older and now being involved for, several years now. If you got in a time machine in the DeLorean, what would you say to young Spencer, like, hey, here's what you need to focus on getting back into this business?
So my advice would be to think bigger. I think the biggest trap that business operators can fall into is that they're just not thinking big enough.
Right.
And in our industry, the common trap is that you're still running service calls as the owner.
Yeah.
Or in your business, you're still, going to the house and fixing the dishwasher or whatever.
Working in your business instead of on your business.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think bigger. There's if someone like my dad's a great guy, but if he's capable of this, if you and I are capable of what we're doing, then there's a lot of people who can just be better and bigger simply by believing it.
Spencer Tippetts, Rainforest Plumbing and Air. Thank you so much for joining me today. Really appreciate you and the partnership. For everyone else, thank you for tuning into CashFlow, the podcast where we talk about turning properties into profits. We'll see you next week. Thank you.